And
Meaning 150 years after our death, the algorithm will be able to recreate us using some scraps of DNA harvested from.
forever.
Anywho, not our problem today. Courtney, hi. I haven't seen you in a very long time.
No, nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. We met circa 2005.
Oh
yeah.
my goodness.
16 years ago at the Vermont Studio Center.
Mm-hmm.
That was my first ever artist residency.
Mine too.
Yeah.
And if memory serves, we spent a fair amount of time sort of coyly stalking Lori Moore, who was briefly there.
Right. Lori Moore was the reason I became a writer.
Among that I did too.
Yeah. And we were very giggly and stalkerish,
Mm-hmm.
which no doubt she was used to.
Right. No regrets.
I feel for her now, 16 years later, sort of on the other side. What a thing to live with.
Mm-hmm.
Just hordes of young writers.
I know, it must be so hard.
Following you around, just trying to soak up something. Greatness by proximity, if only.
Mm-hmm.
If only. So you back then were working on short stories.
Yes.
If memory serves. Yeah.
Yes, you are correct.
And you were post MFA then too, yeah?
I was mid MFA.
You were?
Yes.
You were in Tucson?
Yes, I was.
How was that?
The MFA program?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was great. So I first did an MA at Johns Hopkins through the writing seminars, and went there because I wanted the shortest program so I could write my book in the shortest amount of time. And that really worked out. And I was like, oh, it's only 1 year. Okay, I'll just do it twice as quickly.
How hard could it be?
How hard could it be? Wah, wah. And then it pretty much, made clear how little I knew about book making. So then I went to the University of Arizona for their 2-year-long MFA program. But it still took many years, to birth a book, it turned out.
Yes. Well, the results are quite worth it, I would say. Hello. Cheers.
Mwah.
Kiss books. Mwah. And you wound up publishing essays for your first book.
How did that happen?
It's really interesting, but your essays read very, very narrative to me. I mean, these essays strike me as very short story-esque. A lot of people are confused about what the difference is. I mean, and it's fun to try to explain the difference, and people's eyes just glaze over after a while.
I know. I mean, this is true even with my students. I'm regularly, and people, adults in my own life, short story, fiction, essay, nonfiction, but then creative nonfiction creates this sort of hybridity, which is the space where I live in this book, I think.
Yeah. It's a beautiful, beautiful book. I loved it the first time, and I loved it the second time this morning. It's a book that really, there's a very, Mary Gateskill uses the word gentle, which is not a word that you see very often in blurbs.
Especially not the word Gateskill.
I know, right? I mean, blurbs tend to be like very hyperbolic, and like words like ferocious, explosive, earth shattering. Off topic, my writer friend Rebecca Schiff and I want to start a literary journal called the Blurb Review, where we just pick apart.
Oh my God! Yes.
I know that would be fun, right? But Gateskill uses the word gentle, and I thought that was so apropos. And there's like a cadence and a rhythm to these pieces. Even when you're talking about things that are extreme, you approach your subject matter, whether it's surrogacy the mikvah, deep-seated anxiety, multi-generational anxiety disorders, religious ambivalence. I mean, all these huge subjects, you handle them with such care. You're what's like the opposite of a bull in a china shop. That's you.
In my writing, less so in the way I move through the world, but
well, that's what writing is, right? It's like a second life. It's like
totally. It's like a reinvention.
Yeah, you get to reinvent life and have it be on your terms.
I mean, I'm also thinking about how you said like careful consideration. I really only took on topics that I feel, strongly about or conflicted by. And so part of the aim in writing them is to carefully like turn them over and sort of see what they look like. So I feel like that's why I wrote the book.
Right. We don't get to do that in life.
Right. It's just
we have to get on with things and put one foot in front of the other. And like somebody needs to make dinner and somebody needs to clean the toilet and somebody needs to walk the dog.
Right.
And then in this other space, you get to sit and consider.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's what was it like when you were amassing these essays? Like, I mean, as somebody who like maybe, I don't know, did you like identify as a short story writer or a fiction writer and then suddenly you find yourself?
Yeah, I still do. I am a fiction writer.
Yes.
So
did you have a moment of being like, what am I doing? Like, why am I working on essays?
I think no, because when it was clear to me that sort of that there was a book in process, that just felt exciting. But I do feel like I have to like sort of stamp that fiction foot when I'm in interviews or talking about the book to be like, well, this is where, I got my chops. This is also who I am. But I think there is a lot of bleed between literary fiction and narrative nonfiction. And surely, I mean, per your questions about graduate school training, et cetera, this definitely enabled me to write.
Did you by any chance cross paths with Stacy Richter at no? Did we talk about this?
I was there before her. No, I don't think we did, but I do know that she went through that program.
Her stories are my favorite. I cannot get enough.
Yeah,
Stacy Richter stories. And there's only two collections. I'm like, come on.
Maybe she'll write for the Blurb Review.
A dream. That would be a dream. So, how has it been publishing this book? Where are you at? Tell me.
It's a week in. Today's its week anniversary, so it's still young. It's been a delight, and it's been a bit complicated too because of COVID.
Right.
So, I've been doing events. I mean, now it's daytime and my kids are at school, so I can, have free reign of my living room. But, I've been doing them in a bedroom with a door that doesn't properly close at a time when they both turn into werewolves. So like have been trying to ensure nobody, barges in through the door. I just feel like, and then I sort of end these invigorating conversations and go promptly do laundry. So it feels like, So I would say on balance, it's been a delight. I mean, I have nothing to compare it to as a debut writer. So the fact that it lives in the world, and yesterday I saw it in a bookstore and that feels just thrilling. I also want to be clinking glasses with you in person.
I know. But the upside, let me just say, in the olden days, you'd like drive 6 hours to a bookstore somewhere in Connecticut and like 4 people would be there and 2 of them would leave the minute you start talking because they thought it was like a cookbook event, and one of the other 2 would say, I have more of a comment really,
right,
and I want to
will you read my manuscript?
Yes. Why did you write this instead of something else? And I think you should write about, okay. And then wearily drive home and pay the babysitter. Like, why?
True. I know. You're right. I think it's better being in Zoom so I don't have to see, how few people have shown up. No.
See the glowering faces of people who take issue with your word choices or your topic or your subject matter.
So you're right. I do think, pros and cons.
There's always some existential terribleness, no matter what. But this way it's kind of fun to reinvent the book tour this way. I mean, so that it's kind of like public access. Like we all just get to be in this weird liminal space and people from all over can check in. And
that is true.
Yep.
True. Yeah.
And, from the waist down, you're just
PJs.
Wild animal.
Okay, TMI, Elisa.
So no, it's okay. I was a wild animal before. It's not like COVID has changed anything. So what have been some beautiful responses you've gotten so far? What has been like validating and thrilling and made you feel like I've done good?
That's a good question. So far, again, it's still pretty young, so people are just reading it. But getting beautiful messages from people in my life has been really uplifting. Mm-hmm. Folks I know only tangentially or even know well, but who, it's like they're sort of meeting this other me. Mm-hmm. And, I value their responses, their opinions, and their feedback.
Do you feel like you live like a double life when you're writing, when you're immersed in this private space working on what you're working on, and then you have your life and the laundry and, the daily encounters and like, this is a leading question because I feel this way.
I don't in terms of this book, because I think it's like I'm walking the kids to school or at the playground and I'm still like thinking about whatever it is I'm working on and like writing notes on my hand, truly, wherever I can find a scrap. So it feels like it's always ongoing. It's not like, now I'm going to close and lock the door and enter this this cave of my secrets.
Right.
I think because they coexist in some ways, it doesn't feel like a doubling.
You don't feel like compartmentalized.
I'm quite bad at that. So I feel like, I don't know how to describe, like I'll empty out a purse at the end of the day and it's like on gum wrappers. I'm like, oh yeah, that idea that I had. I feel like it's sort of the opposite of a compartmentalized. It's sort of scattered in bits all over my life.
Right. I think that's probably healthy.
I hope so.
I don't know. What's healthier, compartmentalization or?
I think they both have benefits, depending, but.
Right. And they probably both have detriments too. I just, it's like it's hard to, somebody says like, oh, how's it going? And you say, oh, it's fine. You don't dive into like all of the layered thoughts that you're having about the piece that you're working on.
Right. I'll say, don't talk to me. I'm busy thinking.
I'm thinking.
Come back.
Stay away. COVID's good for that too. People kind of stay 6 feet away. Hello, how's it going? Good. You don't have to.
It's good for that, but it's bad for the deep thinking because I'm like in a confined space with small, loud humans.
Right. It's a really, I've been thinking a lot about what this year would have been like with smaller children. I think it's challenging for everybody in different ways, but the little ones with their intensity level and physical needs, and I mean it's relentless. It's relentless, and that's what I think that's in the last, I don't know, 10 years maybe, that's what we're starting to see so beautifully brought to the fore in literature. The sort of the experience of caregiving
Well, your novel does that beautifully.
Thank you. Thank you.
After,
Yeah, those early days. I know, but isn't it funny? Like when you have a brand new baby, you think this is like the most intense thing ever. And then, within a few years, it's like, wow, that was so chill. That was so.
I never think that. I don't know.
No?
Well, no. My second born was colicky. And, those days, my husband and I, every now and then, we like dart awake in the middle of, like, we're still haunted by it. He was so 6 months of like just intense screaming.
Yeah.
It was really hard. And we had a 2-year-old who was just like,
That's insane.
Yeah. So I never think, oh, that was so chill.
Did you, throughout the experience of bringing children to the world, did you have a moment or many moments of like crisis of faith of sort of like, will I ever get my creative space back?
Oh, yes. Especially as a nursing mom, because I would set the clock and I'd be like, okay, I have like an hour and a half. Because I don't know, I'm thinking with my firstborn, he was eating like every 2 hours because he still pretty much eats every 2 hours. And I would hustle to the cafe because, we lived at the time in a 1-bedroom apartment, and that pressure is impossible to work under.
Yeah.
I'd be like, okay, I'm going to write a novel, and then it would be like, it's like, oh, okay. So I was regularly sort of torn up about like how to manage all these like moving pieces, this sort of Tetris game. Life, especially with those demands, and then with work in the mix too, it just all felt really.
Oh, right, a job.
That other thing.
Oh, right. So it's not really a double life. It's more like a triple or quadruple life.
Many lives. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's and yet here you are. Like.
Well, that's the irony, I think, is that this book would not exist without motherhood, because.
Yeah.
That's the lens through which I look at every subject in here. So it's the thing that gave me sort of a crisis of faith in productivity, but then wound up being the path to my first book.
Yeah, totally. And which seems like it took a form that you might not have predicted.
That's right.
Before. Beautiful. I mean, there's a lot to be said for going with the flow. I don't know how anyone survives without that. There's what's the expression? Like, it's not the strong who survive, it's the flexible. It's the ones who can roll with change.
Did you write much nonfiction in those early days? I know you process a lot of it in fiction.
Yeah, I did. I wrote a couple essays, I think. I don't know. It's all a blur.
So chill.
What?
It was so chill. Those early days.
Oh yeah, it was. I mean, if I could go back and do it again, I would have heeded what was said to me often.
Don't tell me I'm supposed to be working on my other project.
No, like enjoy this time. It goes so fast. People would say that kind of stuff to me, and I would say, "What are you talking about?" I am like
advice to be very annoing. It's like
it's very annoying.
How forcefully can you enjoy something? Like, what are you really advising?
Enjoy. But of course they were right. They were right, because that time is fleeting, and when it's over, it's over. And you look at people with infants in their arms, and you think, like, you don't have to write a novel right now. You don't have to. Like, you can write a novel later. I mean, tomorrow's not promised us, but this idea that there's just something very punitive feeling to me about the we're conditioned to sort of like post second wave feminism. We have to do and be and fulfill all these roles at the same time. It's just not humane.
I don't know if
it's not workable.
No, it's not. I mean, the New York Times covered sort of the way this pandemic is sort of torturing mothers. And gosh, it was so heartbreaking.
Yeah. I mean,
all of what you're describing, but also with the added pressure of
Right. I mean, one of the many fascinating things about this past year has been the way that it has exposed so much that has been there all along.
Mm-hmm.
Everything unsustainable, everything sort of wrong has been just brought right to the front of our consciousness, and that's fantastic. You know, I'm happy for that. I'm grateful for that.
I hope it leads to tangible change.
I hope so too. I know that's the problem. You know, are we gonna just kind of duck and cover and scurry back to our normal lives as soon as possible? And I don't know. Human history might suggest yes, but
Maybe.
well, you know, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, right?
Exactly.
Anyway, okay. So what are you reading? What are you working on while you're promoting your book and mothering 2 small children in a pandemic? And
yes. Well, what I've been reading is largely what I've assigned to my students because I teach full time.
What are you teaching right now?
I'm teaching advanced fiction writing, creative nonfiction, and English 150, which is a multi-genre sort of entry-level gateway English department class.
You're teaching 3 courses right now.
I am. Sure am.
Damn, Courtney. Damn.
I also direct the program, so I run the reading series at Literary Magazine and the contest, and I meet with potentially admitted students on Zoom, and I'm also on a search committee.
So you have your shit together.
You asked, so.
Wow. Do you think that having your first book out will reduce your course load in the future?
I don't.
No.
But I also think it's very funny to hear like when people are like, you really should just be like writing your other book now. When?
And you should be enjoying this time.
Enjoy it. I know. It is. I mean, yesterday I went to Books Are Magic, which is our local bookstore, to sign some stock, which was thrilling. Emma Straub, a novelist who owns the bookstore, came down to say hello, and that was so lovely, but I was in between teaching classes. I had to run. Like, this is life, my life. Yeah, it's bunkers, but we're making it work. And this is definitely, you know, the highlight is getting to have chats about the book and being readily reminded that, you know, it lives.
And being feted. No, what is it? How do you say that word?
I don't know. Feted ways, right?
Well, because I mean, feted. Were you one of those children who read so much that you knew words but didn't know how to pronounce them?
A little bit.
I mean, there's feted, but then the other, there's FETED, and then there's FETID. You are not the latter.
No, not feted.
You are I want to do the former.
Okay. Yes. Thanks.
That's what we're here to do.
Okay.
So what are you assigning your students? Like, what do you make them read?
I feel like I should pull up my syllabi. For my literature class, I got to pick a theme. We're doing coming of age in contemporary literature.
Perfect.
Which is
what
something I'm exploring in my fiction, and I guess something I explore in this book too, in some ways.
For sure.
We just read The Nickel Academy, or The Nickel Boys, rather, which I hadn't read, and really loved.
Yeah.
And yesterday, I can only think as far back as yesterday. Yesterday, my students read The Special World by Tiffany Yannick, which is a wonderful short story.
Is that in her first collection?
No, it's excerpted from her forthcoming novel, but it's in the Best American Short Stories for this year.
Cool.
And that's all I remember.
Do you feel like you're when you're picking stuff for your students to read, do you feel like you're sort of like compiling a nutritious meal plan for them? Here's what you need.
Yes, it does feel that a little bit. And also for me.
Yeah, totally. I mean, because you're going to have to be reading along.
That's right. And I was like, that book has been on my TBR pile.
And
let's just read it together.
I have a couple books here that I like. This is my pile right now.
Okay.
This is always around Marge Piercy poems.
which I've not read.
Marge Piercy, have you read any Marge Piercy?
No.
She is bananas great. I mean, there's a huge novel. She's written poetry, nonfiction, fiction, incredibly prolific. And there's this novel she wrote, huge, like sort of dystopian novel, Woman on the Edge of Time, that is so bonkers and cool. And then this one, do you know Alice Childress?
It sounds familiar.
Well, there was a Ben Folds 5 song when we were in college. Try not to think about it, Alice Childress. I've been trying to figure out if it's related at all,
Okay.
and I can't figure it out. She died in 1994. And in the 80s, she published a YA novel about a young boy in Harlem with a heroin problem called A Hero Ain't Nothing But a Sandwich. That might ring a bell. Do you know, have you seen that? That was like, that paperback was
familiar, yes.
Anyway, she's rad.
Okay.
I burned the cover by accident with incense.
I was going to say, are you like redacting the name? What is you?
No. Although sometimes if there's a blurb on a book that I abhor,
You cross it out.
I abhor the blurb. Like, I love the book, but I find the blurb like really inept or sort of hyperbolic or just kind of wrong in some way. I will deface.
Nice.
That's a little. What else? Oh,
blurbs. Did you think my blurbs were hyperbolic?
No, not yours. No, your blurbs are amazing. No, your blurbs are really great. Your blurbs are.
Were they explosive?
Like, my brain literally exploded when I read this book. Like, oh my God, are you okay? Like that, like you should go to the doctor. No, your blurbs are beautiful. Yes, but and then what else? Oh, I'm an Ishiguro virgin, yes. And
really?
I'm ready. I don't know what I've been waiting for.
So
I don't.
Yeah, he's amazing. I have a really funny story that I met him in the UK at a prize ceremony for the Sunday Times Short Story Award.
For the huge prize you won, by the way.
I, was ushered over to him, and I was like, hello, shook his hand, and he was like, oh, what are you working on? And I said, oh, I'm turning a short story like into a novel. At the time, that was my central project. And he was like, that's such a good idea. And then someone was like, smile. And then we both had to look at the camera, and I was like, oh, hero dashing project of mine. Isn't that so funny? I know.
He said, don't do that?
I think he was just posing. And then as we were being photographed, he was like, actually, I kind of did that for one of my books.
Ishiguro, he mansplained your work in progress to you? Is that what happened?
He advised on it.
With no knowledge.
Right.
Okay.
But don't let that, color your, he's so good.
Do you think this is a good one to start with?
I haven't read that one.
It's pretty large.
It is.
But I'm excited.
Yeah, no, I find his work to be very immersive. So I think
I'm excited. I got this. We have a beautiful bookstore in Albany called Dove and Hudson. It's on the corner of Dove and Hudson Streets. And it's the most glorious little gem of a used bookstore. And everything they just have what you need.
Will they take back your books where you've effaced the blurbs? Because I really want to know what to do with those books.
No, I've never tried. I'm gonna pass those down to my grandchildren. I won't get into the number one blurb offender until we publish the review. And then what about Iris Murdoch? Are you a Murdoch fan? Isn't she killer?
Yes.
She is. Wow. It's really depressing that she ended with severe Alzheimer's with a mind like this.
I feel like I'm augmenting I'm literally writing down things to remember to visit or revisit.
We can have this conversation anytime you want. Like,
right.
This is all I do. I sit amidst piles of books.
You're like,
what about this one? Do you know this guy?
I know his work. I don't know that.
It's bonkers. It's like otherworldly. I wouldn't say sci-fi. Maybe sci-fi.
Are you in a dystopian streak?
I think I might be.
I think so.
I mean, it kind of fits with
Girl.
where we are. And then this one, a little horror story.
Yes, it's on my bedside table.
It's terrible to have by your bedside.
I think the language though is so rich. No,
It's not gentle.
no, it's definitely not gentle.
It's not gentle. I mean, like a pre-bedtime book like this, you can read any time of day. It will not give you nightmares. It will just gently hold you and like nurse you almost. It's
Thanks so much.
no, it's really okay. But before we run out of time, I wanna talk about like specific essays.
Okay.
Do you have a favorite? Is that like asking about your favorite child?
It's not, because I have ones that I feel especially proud of because they were hardest to write.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the ones that I think read the best came out quite easily, but it's like the ones I fought for that I feel proudest of.
Totally.
Boy in Blue took me maybe the longest.
Boy in Blue, which is about your son's predilection for like police cosplay.
Still ongoing. Still ongoing.
Ongoing. How old is he now?
6.
And I told you after I called or I emailed you after I read this, and I said, this is so weird because my son had a police phase, very entrenched. Like, I mean, it was probably a year and a half in uniform every day, walking the neighborhood, dispensing tickets. You know, we called it his
weaponized.
He had a bully stick and he had a little spray bottle with apple cider vinegar in it, and that was his pepper spray. We wouldn't let him. It was a long conversation about the toy gun. Like you cannot even carry a toy gun, and here's why.
Right.
This was like circa 2014.
Okay.
And, you know, even then, we would be wherever we were in the world, whether it was Albany or Troy or New York City or Hudson or, you know, wherever our wandering took us, and he'd be sauntering down the street in his full uniform with his name, you know, Officer Schwarzschild. And without fail, everywhere we went, white people would see him coming and go, "Hey, cutie, thanks for keeping us safe.
Always.
You're doing a great job, buddy."
Yep.
People of color would see us coming and laugh and go, "Don't shoot. I didn't do it. Wasn't me. Hands up." Everywhere without fail. And he, I mean, at 6, he was like, "Why? What's that about?" And it was this, you know, yet another long conversation. I mean, so this essay was uncanny. So what do you think? I mean, is it just a super ego thing? Is it a particular kind of gender identification thing?
I think it's many things, and I could be wrong about all the things I think also, you know. We live next door to
That's a good disclaimer.
Yeah, always. We live next door to a police precinct, so we, you know, dozens of times a day, every time we come and go, we see people, you know, folks who are arrested, you know, pulled out. We're told to stop. This happens at least once a week, and we've been living here for years. Stop, and they take the person who's arrested and bring them into the precinct. My son has wanted to go to the precinct. I've entertained this a couple of times. There are people in the holding cells who we can see through the, you know, plexiglass like, it's just so problematic in so many ways. And not for nothing, you know, he's a white boy,
right.
As opposed to not for nothing for everything. He's a white boy in this outfit who, you know, wants all the weapons. So what is it about? I mean, it's about a little bit modeling what he sees closely, these like tough looking equipment carrying people. Many women in the force on my block too. But it is also just about him trying to wield power as the littlest in the family. And he's a very sensitive kid. And he's always he goes to sleep sometimes screaming, "You have too much power," because he wants to stay up until midnight, you know. So in some ways it's that. I wish maybe it took a different shape, but we've had a lot of conversations about it. So the reason that piece took so long is because I think the stakes are very high to write about white privilege, and they should be. And that is largely what this essay explores, including, you know, crimes I committed and got away with, and the ways in which this is sort of codified in our lives and the sensitive and probably insensitive ways I attempt to talk about it with my kids.
Right. Have you broached the Stanford prison experiment with him yet?
I know, but I remember you saying that you did. I thought that was so funny.
It's a good one. It's kind of, I mean, it's, you know, it continues to be mind-blowing, just the narrative of that. Did you read the Overstory, Richard Powers?
I didn't.
It's very beautiful. I think you'd love it. I mean, it'll carry you far off in a way, even though it's also hugely depressing and real about environmental degradation. But he has one of his characters as a participant in that experiment.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it spans many decades.
Yes.
And I don't know if it's in that book or not, but another crazy thing is that Ted Kaczynski was part of that experiment as a grad student. He was like a promising math grad student, brilliant young man, and he was part of that experiment. I'm blanking out right now as to whether he was a prisoner or a guard.
I know, that does seem.
Well, I mean, it, you know, by all accounts, it, you know, maybe that's one of the things that kind of fucked him up. Anyway, that's a fun conversation to have whenever you're ready.
Great, here for it.
Come here, sweetheart. Let me explain to you human nature in the context of domination and subjugation. Come sit on mommy's lap.
Good night.
Sweet dreams. Yeah, I mean, this essay, it's, you know, these essays are so, this is a book that can be read in one sitting. I surprised myself. I mean, when you sent me the PDF, I read it on my phone, which I never, ever do. And I'm like opposed to reading on screens, you know, on principle. But, you know, these essays, they're deceptively simple. They go down real easy and then they stay.
Just a spoonful of sugar, half sugar.
Just talking about this last night with my rabbi and Rebbitzin, that you're, you know, when you're engaged in learning or study, you should have sweetness on your lips. You should have joy, and I mean that's the way. You know, it shouldn't be bitter. It shouldn't be sour. It should be, you know, we can't learn or study or grow or think if we're, you know, mired in yuckiness, you know. If we're going to embark on, maybe that's why I like to eat chocolate while I read.
Sorry, keep telling yourself that. It's helping you.
Cue diabetes. Okay, so Boy in Blue, beautiful. The stuff, your mother, the musician, the singer, the songwriter, the sort of thwarted artist in ultrasound, very haunting, very, very haunting, especially as you know, with the imagining of you as her doppelganger, and all the things that remain unsaid, you know, things that she won't talk about with you, the way you have to be the detective. Did your mom have any response to this book? Like, has she read it?
I think so. And I should say that the pieces that are about her, I read to her over the phone before I published them. But, you know, I think that she has had some shifting reactions to the work, as I think is often common with memoir, that there's not like a single feeling or a single reaction, that feelings and reactions change. So I think it was slightly different for her to hear it and like whatever one can absorb being read to, and then like have the text. And I think maybe that was a slightly different experience. She's generally, you know, happy for me and for the book, but we don't get into the granular particulars.
That's good. That sounds healthy. Sounds workable.
Yes, it is.
Who said the famous line about when a writer is born into a family, the family is finished?
Oh, I don't know, but it sounded like, I thought it was almost a Philip Rothy, you know, writer in the family.
Right. The one that, I mean, I had a hard time with Holy Body, personally. Like that one, I felt a very acute sense of discomfort the entire time I was reading.
That's interesting. Tell me why.
Bodies, bodies, fertility, the uses of bodies, the shifting ways in which we can use or offer our bodies to be used.
Right. So I should pause and say that's an essay about gestational surrogacy, and a friend of mine who carried a child and delivered a child for a couple she did not know.
Mm-hmm. Well, in the context of, and she works at a very large, beautiful sounding mikveh in Boston, right?
Yeah.
Always wanted to go to that mikveh. Founded by Anita Diamond, among others.
Correct.
Yeah, I have to make a pilgrimage to that mikveh one day, like a mikveh tourist.
Yeah. So the surrogacy piece, the that made you uncomfortable. I thought it was going to be the religiosity.
No, see, not at all. And your relationship with Judaism is like a can of worms I don't even feel like I can open right now. It permeates.
That's for the after party.
Yeah, totally. That's off the record. No, the Judaism, the religious aspects don't give me pause at all. And I'm all the way there. But I think in this essay too, you're grappling with trying to understand your friend, in the context of like, didn't you meet as teens?
We met as 7-year-olds at sleepaway camp, or 8-year-olds.
Okay, right.
Jewish
and like, what, who is, and how, what, I mean, like, this is the state in which I read this essay, and I mean, she's not destitute. She's not doing this because it's the only way that she can make a living.
She was interested in doing it before she knew she could be compensated for doing it. She wanted to do this, like, this act of radical altruism. That's how.
Which is mind-blowing.
Yes. Hence my making a pilgrimage to the mikveh center to meet her. And I said, hence my making a pilgrimage to the mikveh center to meet her and better understand this choice.
Yeah. And do you feel like you feel like by the time you were done working on this essay, you did understand the choice?
Yes, which is different from my like feeling like I would make the same choice. I very much feel like I understood her and her context and her motivation. Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's really beautifully put.
Some of the, insights she had, like that she wasn't interested in donating a kidney, for example. Like I was naming other things, like, like show me this like net of radical empathy, and it was clearer that it was always about like making a family, helping a couple make a family. That it was very specific to this act.
Amazing. And have you touched base with her since?
Oh yeah, so I'm doing an event at Mayim Chaim in conversation with Anita Diamant. Is it Diamant? How do I say her name?
I don't know. It's like
Okay, I have to ask Carrie. Carrie is incredibly supportive of the essay, of the book. Just feels like it did her story justice, which is the biggest compliment ever. And I wouldn't, she's a friend, I certainly would not have gone forth if it felt not okay.
You never strike me as the kind of writer who's out to sort of slash and burn, and to leave a trail of scorched earth in your wake.
No.
That's a different kind of endeavor.
They write explosive books, those people.
No, you are considered. Like you're not like bursting onto a scene like, narrative guns blazing, just trying to take no prisoners and leave nothing in your wake. You always feel to me like you're entering into a conundrum or a question or a paradox or a vacuum, sort of with utmost compassion and consideration.
I try.
For yourself too.
I try.
For your subjects, for yourself. I mean, that's a real, it's, I don't know, for me, that kind of runs counter to the impulse. I have to fight the opposite impulse, if I feel moved to investigate or interrogate something, it's usually because I feel it needs to be torn down, like demoed.
Right. I do think genre has something to do with it too.
How so? What do you mean?
Well, that I'm writing about real people.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So nonfiction, of course. You have to be like, yeah. You don't have license.
No, I don't think so. Though there are plenty of memoirists who guns blaze, into whatever situation and feel like anything in the name of art. This is just, that they think all stories can be their stories, and that's not.
You're not doing that here.
I'm not doing.
Do you feel like writing essays and publishing essays has changed the way that you approach fiction?
Jury's out, because I'm just returning to fiction, but I don't think so. I was writing them simultaneously. I mean, this book came together because I was doing it on the side while working on fiction, like these one-off pieces that then suddenly sort of coalesced. So, I mean, I hope that they sort of support each other. This is my dream, I definitely think it's sort of refined my voice as a writer, doing them both at the same time.
Amazing. Okay. Well, if anybody in our audience has any questions, I think now would be a good time to put them in chat or unmute yourself, whatever works. And I want to say that the Book House in Albany can be contacted to purchase this beautiful book, and it can be acquired temporarily via the Albany Public Library. And if you don't live anywhere near here, then you should find another way to get it wherever books are sold. The other thing we can't get into, I mean, Hot for Teacher, that essay. That's my reaction to that essay.
Yeah. That essay is about students who made sexual advances at me in front of the class.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what's your elevator pitch for that essay? Because I can't talk about it. All I can say is,
Yeah.
Well, and the
OBGYN. Oh my gosh. Right.
Yeah. Okay. So anyone who's curious about what the hell we're talking about, just read it.
Predatory OBGYN. This is why we'll only see female doctors.
Yeah, not that they can't suck too, but in a different way.
Yes. I will not even respond to that, the particulars of your comment just now.
Wow. Okay, good. I don't know. How much do I want to get into this right now? This is for the after party.
Get into it.
Yeah, horrifying. I mean, the way that you described thinking that the OBGYN's behavior was normal, the way that I think that that's what we all hopefully are woke to more now, increasingly, hopefully, that things that you have been conditioned to think are normal are not normal at all.
What's complicated is that you surrender the power over to those who know more than you do, and you're in this vulnerable position because what do I really know about that field? And how am I to gauge? I mean, I was quite young comparatively, but even still, I mean, how many times do things go awry and whatever the doctor says it is or to do, I'm just like, yes, master. You know, I think
Well,
it's
right. I
really
mean,
dangerous power dynamic there if somebody is,
very.
apt to
Well,
take advantage.
it's a very dangerous power dynamic no matter what, I think. And I think the sign of this is another can of worms, the sign of a good caregiver, a good practitioner, physician, is somebody who does not exploit that dynamic and who does not seek to embroider the master,
Puppet.
the God trembling mortal dynamic, and that maybe what we need to teach our children and ourselves is that when that dynamic is in effect, you run. That is never ever.
I think it's sometimes hard to know that when it's in effect, and I think that was
because we're conditioned to think it's normal. Save me. I am nothing. You are everything. Tell me. Do whatever you want. Whatever you need to do.
I think, yes, conditioned, but also it's legit in some ways because if you're in like a state of disrepair physically and you need help, it's like,
well, if you have a gunshot wound, if you have a limb that's been torn off, I can understand. In a state of acute trauma, I can understand. Like, okay, whatever. Like, please help me, save me. Like, sure, but yeah, that dynamic. That's a whole nother.
Thorny. Yep.
Wow. Yeah, I was I realized when I was in my late 30s that I was totally molested by my pediatrician.
Oh, stop.
I thought it was normal. I thought all pediatricians had to do that to little girls. It came upon me like, holy shit, the guy's dead. He's been dead for a long time. It's fine. I mean, it's normal, isn't it? It's like,
it is grotesque.
It's total. I mean, but the how commonplace it is. That's what I mean. All culture is like shaking in its boots now on all these different levels. Me Too and Black Lives Matter. I mean, like all these things that have been so long in coming, and expose just how universal these myriad violations have been forever and ever. I mean, it's the norm. It just is.
Yes. A shed title for the book was "You Have Violated a Protected Area." That used to be was one of the titles, but I'm glad I shed.
Wow, and that essay too, the essay about anxiety, is such a powerhouse. The only thing we have to fear. Wow, and that alarm. I mean, that was so visceral. The way that the security system.
Yes, that security system showed up also in the essay Trespass.
Mm-hmm.
And
that I love that one.
And the just the idea of violations, which Hot for Teacher, like it seemed to me like another lens to train on the book is like a variety of trespasses.
Totally.
That title sounded too, like a woman's body violated.
Right. And it also calls to mind, the word trespass to me is like inseparable from Yom Kippur, and from the way what we recite on Yom Kippur. Mm-hmm. All the trespasses that we ourselves have perpetrated.
Yes.
How do you forgive trespasses perpetrated on you? Mm-hmm. How do you contextualize the things that you've perpetrated on others? Like, it's all a mess.
Mm-hmm. It is such a specific word.
Yeah. Trespass. Yeah. Great. Okay, well that's maybe a good place to stop.
Okay. It's so nice to chat with you.
Thank you for doing this. It's really good to see you.
You too.
I'm sorry that we're not in person. I'm sorry that we can't be skipping down the sidewalk together
Soon.
soon. And congratulations. This book is beautiful and thought-provoking and exacting. Beautiful achievement.
And I also want to end by saying you wrote a really beautiful blurb for it too.
Oh, did I? I wonder if it would pass muster in the blurb review.
Totally would get published there.
Please read your blurb.
Please.
No, that's a step too far. But I stand by it. It is a lucid dream of a book, and I would keep reading indefinitely. So if you wouldn't mind, amidst your 3-course load and your 2 small children and your book promotion, getting back to work so that we can read more.
Done.
I would be grateful. All right. Thank you so much. Are there any, Lex says any time for questions? I mean, I think if anyone had any questions, they could shout out, but otherwise we'll say goodbye.
Okay.
All right. Good luck with the rest of book tour. Good luck with everything on your plate.
You too.
Get back to work. Okay.
Thank you, Courtney.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Bye.